A group of jolly cowboys discussing plans at ease. Said one, I'll tell you something, boys, if you will listen, please. I am an old cowpuncher, and now I'm dressed in rags. I used to be a tough one and go on great big jags. But I have a home, boys, a good one you all know, although I haven't seen it since long time ago. I'm going back to Dixie once more to see them all. I'm going to see my mother when the work's all done this fall. As far as what the ranch looks like, it's come way, it's been improved a lot, and they're keeping it up, and they're keeping enough cattle on it, way more than we ever had. And I think that they're doing a good job. And I boss them, but they don't listen to me.
We started this ranch in 1909, and that's 5 generations and over 100 years that we've been raising cattle on some of the same ground that my great-great-grandfather homesteaded. All of them figured out a way to be sustainable, so I guess it's my turn. My favorite season is the one we're in right now. Springtime in Montana, cool mornings, warm days, new calves hitting the ground, you know, watching the river go by. A little bit of mud every once in a while always makes you feel better that grass is coming in the hills, and seeing that green poke up, and it's just kind of the beginning of everything that we work for. You know, this is where we begin the year. Never gets old. I'm pretty sure since the time I could talk, I wanted to be a cowboy. Watching Dad, and I mean, my hero was John Wayne. I'm named after Jesse Chisholm that created the Chisholm Trail, and no, it's been in my blood, I think, since the beginning, as long as I can remember, that this is what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be, and carry on that legacy of ranching. Transition from cowboy to cattleman. When I was young, I didn't care. Like, as long as I was doing the work and having fun and maybe getting some jobs done that I wanted to get done, I just kind of took it for granted that the grass was going to be there. I took it for granted that somebody was watching our bottom line, and it didn't necessarily have to be me. I just showed up and kind of went with it. And now that I've moved more into a managerial and ownership role, now I'm realizing that there was quite a bit of things that I took for granted. When to move cattle, how many cattle do you have there? If you take too much, there's going to be substantially less in the coming year to come into.
I think we're sitting better than we have for the last couple of years. We've got 3,000 bales sitting around that we're not going to use this year. We had enough hay for next year, so that's going to be something we can put on the market right off the field, use up our older stuff ourselves. We're worried about cattle prices. We talked about the avian flu.
As long as that doesn't take the bottom out of it.
Yeah,
I don't think we've still got less cows in the country than we've ever had on record since they started counting in '71. So.
Wow.
But we are producing more beef per cow now than they were in 1971.
Anything, is there anything somebody
I
doesn't?
bet they don't mind taking care of themselves either.
Peppers, just like peppers or mushrooms. Just ham and cheese, and peppers?
My father's father passed away when he was 14 years old. And making the decision to keep going or not. And they had some debt on the place at that time. And while he was dying, he called my grandmother and my dad into his room. And while they were by the bedside there, he said, "Looks like you've got enough money ahead if we sold the place and all the equipment and all the cows, you guys could buy a house in town." And he said, "Or if you guys want to try it, we could borrow more money and get you guys some equipment that works a little better, something that a 14-year-old boy might be able to keep running and get something done with. And then you'll be 100% leveraged. So it's up to you guys what you want to do," kind of, he said. And I don't know how, but my grandmother turned to my dad, like, "What do you want to do, Chris?" I mean, that's a 14-year-old boy that's picking for the family. And he said, "I want to be a rancher." They borrowed the money, bought the equipment, and my dad tells a story that when that new tractor showed up, his dad got out of bed and came to the door. Well, he's 14 years old, sitting in the seat of this new tractor, and he wasn't well enough to get in it, but he got to see his son in it. And yeah, almost makes you emotional. I think since we put that water line in, you can't get off of it there. My responsibilities in this ranch probably changed when my dad got elected to a national position. And that took him away as much as 150 days a year. So all of a sudden my safety net was gone for half the year. And I didn't have somebody to, well, I didn't have somebody for one to blame when things didn't get done or the right decision wasn't made, because I was the one that was making those decisions. And I think that made me step up and made me grow. It could have been something else. I mean, I worked off the ranch in Colorado for a year, and it just seemed like a lot of the friends I made there all had the same dream, and it involved buying a little piece of property a little ways out of town. Maybe I can raise my kids, where the fence isn't the property line, and we don't have neighbors right next to us. Maybe we can have a horse and some chickens and heck, maybe even a cow, And I just, I realized that I had that. If I just went home, I had what a lot of people dreamed for. There's something special about ranching, that it's still a family business. Not a lot of people get that anymore, I don't think. And we have our ranch meeting once a week, and I get to go sit with my parents and have coffee with, my grandmother, and it's not a boardroom, it's the kitchen table. All right, we're gonna tag a calf. And we do that kind of as soon as we can after the mom gets it licked off, and maybe it's had some colostrum, which is the first milk, really rich in nutrients, and maybe it's stood up, got its legs under it, and we do that just so we can always know who that calf belongs to. So the cows all have a tag identification system, and we match their tag to the calf. And then if they ever get separated for any reason, or the calf is sick and we have to pick it up, we know which cow to bring it back to, and we know how to get them together. This is a wild cow.
This is a wild one?
Yep.
So how do you want to do this?
I want to get, I don't know. I might have to rope the calf or else.
All right, I don't think I can get back there any further.
J16 if you want to. I thought I had a tag made. Let me look for a tag.
Okay. I think it's in the sack.
I think it's in the back.
Okay.
Whew. All right, let's get a rope.
There's one or two of these every year.
What are your predictions on this?
Oh, I don't know. We'll probably run her around until she gets a little bit tired. When the calf gets tired, it gets a little bit easier to catch. And but it's just going to get a little western.
We don't like to raise them like that, but there's still a couple of them left. She's a good mom. I wouldn't like somebody picking up my baby out of a field after I just had it and poking a hole in its ear.
Well, I was on the internet, they were talking about animals that kill people, and cows kill 22 people a year, and we just want to make sure we're not one of those 22.
Is that more or less than sharks?
It was way more than sharks.
The land is everything. I mean, it's our home here. And if we don't have the land, we can't produce the livestock, and that's our way of life. I mean, everybody wants to say that they're a rancher, they're a cattleman, but really, if you go farther than that, we're grass farmers. And if you break that down even more, we're really soil engineers. Because if we don't have the grass, we can't raise the cattle. If we don't have the soil healthy and growing that, we don't have anything to harvest. And really, the difference between ranching and farming is they use a combine to harvest their crop, and we use a cow. A rancher or a farmer is the biggest gambler you've ever seen. You know, he's depending on something that's completely out of his control. When I started telling people that I was going to come home and ranch, they just said there's going to be good years and there's going to be bad years. And I kind of let that roll off, and I had some pretty good years in the beginning. And then one of the misconceptions I had was when one of those tough years did come, it lasted all year. I mean, it was hard all year. I mean, you have a bad start to calving, and then no rain comes. So all the inputs that you put in the ground aren't coming up. And then the cattle start running out of water. So you got to move them around, and then you move them around to where you have decent water, and pretty soon you don't have any grass there. And then the grasshoppers showed up and started eating more grass ahead of where you were trying to move these cattle. So it snowballed, and I guess we would have taken a snowball. It dust balled. Like it got bigger and bigger, and the problem just never went away. And it didn't go away all the way till that winter when we finally got a bunch of snow. And then we went completely the other way with, we had the worst flooding that we've ever experienced here. Lost cattle and flooding. Had a terrible calving season where, you know, we were dropping calves in a snowbank one day, and then you're dropping them in wet mud, then during the day, and then it freezes at night, and you don't have enough barn space. And it was just one extreme to the other in 12 months. And I don't know, it gets hard, but when it gets hard, you either quit or you keep going, and both of them hurt. So just keep doing. It's a lot of responsibility. It's nerve-wracking at times, because you think like, oh man, like inflation's through the roof, and interest is up, and the tractor that I was going to buy last year for $50,000 is now $70,000, or I mean, and that's a used tractor. You're just like, so you think the last guys, you don't want to be the one to lose it. You don't want to be the one to fail the next generation. And you also, at the same time, want to be so successful that every single one of your kids can come home if they want to. And if you don't make the right decisions, if you don't market your calves at the right time, if you stick your neck out too far and buy that neighbor's place, maybe that makes you lose the whole thing. It's just, but then at the same time, if you don't expand, you die. So, where my grandfather could raise a family with 50 head of cows, now sometimes we have trouble, with 500 cows. It's just, the margins have gotten quite a bit smaller over time.
Yelling at me, she goes, was it a heifer or a steer? She wasn't worried about me, she wanted to get her paperwork correct.
Mm-hmm. The guiding principle for the ranch has got to be, it's got to be God. I mean, it all goes back to that. I don't think you can do this work if you don't believe in, forgiveness and telling the truth and treating others as you'd like to be treated. Yeah, and then during the hard times, you've got to have somebody to talk to, and I don't know. I think there's probably more religious people in farming and ranching than other businesses, because we have a lot of reasons to pray, it seems like. Good job, Mom. That one's gonna stand up. Oh, yeah, first steps. Good job, baby. Go get some milk. Cool. That calf's about 70 pounds, which is what we want out of heifers, because they're, even the cows aren't done growing, so they're a lot smaller. It's like the equivalent of like a 16-year-old girl having a kid. Like, they're just not quite ready. And so we put bulls with them that have small birth weights, but every once in a while, something like the one we just pulled happens, and you gotta help them out.
Right? Okay, so this one's coming correctly. Just a little too big for a young cow. So the hocks are in there like that. We'll try to get the chains clear over here so it's pulling on the wrist instead of the foot. And if it's not too hard to pull, we can pull it by hand. Just by assisting her is what they call it. If not, we've got a tool that actually augers them out.
I think that's what we're going to be doing with this one.
I think we're going to have to. Are you going to try it without or not? Got me in there? No, not yet.
My legs behind.
true. So we try to pull when she's pushing. Remember what Come on, push. Help us, Cal. Looking good. You ready? Nice and gentle.
Okay. There we go.
Pushing him hard. Come on.
Yep. You gotta get some milk, bud. Bless him. Okay, sounds good. And we haven't found any.
No wonder she's not satisfied the way you work your
Here,
hands.
want me in the picture. Block the picture.
There are some misconceptions in ranching. I think right now it is probably an issue, but it's one that we're combating, and also I don't think it's as big an issue as a lot of people are making it out to be, and that would be carbon emissions. And I guess cattle don't even really fall under carbon emissions so much. It's more methane, and the half-life of methane in the environment is quite a bit less, substantially less than carbon, and a lot of people treat them as one and the same. And we're also doing some things to combat, our environmental footprint, and those things are that we're looking for ways to reduce water consumption. Right now, I just toured a place in western Montana that's experimenting with feeding seaweed or algae to cattle, and that works to decrease that methane output. And another thing that the cattle industry has, in a way that it has changed in the past 25 years, is we're making more beef right now with less cattle than we ever had. Our efficiency has went way up, whether that's through better genetics, better feeding practices, or how you're feeding them. We've made a lot of moves, I think, to be more responsible for our consumers, and that's our goal too. I mean, I live in this world, and I want my kids to have a safe, healthy, happy existence, and so I'm looking for ways to improve as well. You can always do a little better. I think there's still going to be cows that are eating grass, that are, providing the meat, the protein, vitamins and minerals for the people of this country. I've tried the plant-based meats. I've looked into, the 3D printing of protein, and I've also had a T-bone, and I don't think the T-bone's going anywhere. I just really don't. If that's our competition, I like our odds, I guess. Somebody was telling me about, I was on a flight with her, and she was telling me that, plant-based meats are, the next thing. What are you going to do when it's not profitable to raise cattle anymore? And I told her that I actually make plant-based meats. And she kind of brightened up and said, really? Like, I thought you would have be pretty against that. I said, no, I actually have a machine that goes out and takes grass that's on non-tillable, non-farmable acreage, and so it's pretty much just, a waste for food production. It goes out and it captures that vegetation, and then it turns it into, magically, this great tasting steak and hamburger. And by the time I got to the end of it, she kind of rolled her eyes at me, but God already made that. It is plant-based meat. It's just been through a cow. Land has gotten really expensive. It's pretty hard to enlarge. You can lease, and then there's also a lot of absentee owners. It's pretty attractive right now for people with money to own a ranch, and so they come in and they buy the neighbor's place, and for way more than it's worth in your mind, and way more than it could ever be economical for a cow herd to pay for that land. Right now, there's a push to bring beef in from Paraguay, and that would, make our supply of meat quite a bit more, which in turn makes demand less, which affects my bottom line, what I get to sell my cattle for. And I guess I'm just pretty interested in American beef, and I hope that the consumer is too. There are some safety concerns with bringing in cattle from other countries. Different diseases, foot and mouth disease, stuff that we haven't seen in the United States because we're so responsible with how we raise and take care of our animal health. That maybe they are lagging behind a little bit in other countries, and I don't want to see, because your hamburger is $1 more, I don't want to risk my livelihood, for a short-term gain of injecting that meat supply into the economy. The United States is the largest producer of beef, and we don't have the most beef cattle. So that tells you something about how efficient we are at how we create this product. And then it's also the best beef. Americans spend about 10% on average of their disposable income on food. That's a lot less than a lot of other places in the world. And we're able to do that because we have the tools in place to create a great product. And Montana cattle just top the list. Went out last night, and about 1 o'clock there were 2 calving, and by 2 they both had it, I guess. So
Oh, okay.
didn't have to take anything into the barn last night. There's a brand new one, looking good. We kept a couple of Charolais cross calves like we've never done, but we didn't have quite enough heifers to keep. We didn't think so. I don't know. Never done that before. They're not the prettiest calves, but the way the market is this fall, I think a live calf will be worth quite a bit. So, politics definitely have an effect on ranching and my way of life. They definitely do. There's bills every session that will affect my way of life or make it non-existent. And I'm pretty happy to pay my dues to organizations that kind of watch my back and watch my bottom line. It's pretty hard for me to get to Helena, very often and testify on those bills, or buy a plane ticket to Washington, D.C., or even just read all the legislation that might be coming that I need to educate people on or speak against. And I'm pretty happy to be involved with Montana Stock Growers, National Cattlemen's Beef Association, Public Lands Council, Farm Bureau. Those guys are all different slices of the same pie, but they're watching out for me, they're watching out for my neighbors, and I'm really happy that they do the job that they do. And I'm also really happy that to pay my beef checkoff dollar. So every time a cow is sold or livestock is sold in Montana, you pay $1 per head. And then that dollar goes to educate, advocate, and sell beef. And if we're not going to support our own industry, I mean, who will? We've got a lot of people standing up to fight against us. There's lots of people that want cattle off public land, and I think it's mostly just a misconception. I mean, I'm a public lands rancher. There's 22,000 of us in America, and 40%, I think, of cattle in the western half of the country will spend time in their life on public land, grazing public land, and we treat it the same way we do our own. If that land is mistreated, then it's not doing what it needs to for us either. And we're I guess when I say that we treat the public land the same as we treat our own, we also treat our own the same way that we treat public land. If you want to come recreate on our land and do it responsibly, have at it. We're part of the block management program. We love to see, hunters. We love to see people having fun on our property and experiencing it, because it should be experienced. I mean, this is God's green earth, and I think a lot of people spend too much time looking at four walls. And I mean, get out and see the horizon once in a while, and if you want to do it on our place, it's a great place to do it. There's a lot of misconceptions about ranching in Montana, I think, and to that I would just say that it's not Yellowstone. It's not, not that dramatic all the time, I guess, and then it's just different. It's not always horseback under a clear blue sky in stirrup high grass. I mean, the reservoirs go dry, drought shows up, grasshoppers eat the grass you were going to go into. There's feast and there's famine, and we definitely remember the good times, but you get through the bad times too.
I'm Donna Christensen. I grew up as Donna Bowen, was my maiden name, and I live in Hinsdale. Now I have to play you a tune.
Oh, yeah.
Be nobody's darling but mine. I've got all those songs in a songbook that I started writing in 1944. And I used to listen to phonograph records. They were the big 78s, the big round ones, and then I would copy all the words while it was playing. I'd copy all the words in shorthand. And then I worked in a insurance and income tax office, and I would take all these words in shorthand to work with me, and I'd use the boss's paper and I'd type all my songs up. And I have them in a book, but then as I got older, my eyes started getting bad and I couldn't see them anymore to read them. So a granddaughter that lives in Miles City took my book to Miles City, and she typed my whole songbook up in big print. So I still have them all, and when I play them, I sit at the organ and I chord with them. I am an old cow puncher, and here I'm dressed in rags. Used to be a tough one and go on great big jags. See, that's what I do. It's all up in here. I don't have to have any music. And I don't know why, but when you get old, you don't remember important things, but you remember all those songs from way, way, way back when. DC, Donna Christensen. It's backward D and backward C. And before it was mine, it was my husband's, because his name was Donnie Christensen. And I gave it to Chris now. singing, and he's good at everything. Except talk. When you ask him a question, he answers you with one word. He doesn't go into detail. I asked him one time, "When are you going on your next trip, Chisholm?" "Soon." If I'm in the house, I do a lot of singing. I think that's where Chisholm got it started. I gave him my guitar. I was in a really bad wreck, and so I couldn't move my fingers to play the guitar anymore. I was driving a tractor. I had just loaded 17 round bales on the back of a trailer, and I was coming through Hinsdale, and a semi from Wisconsin rear-ended me, ran into the back of me, and when I came to, I was laying on the side of the highway, and that's when I quit. I gave him my guitar.
Same six, pretty much from kindergarten all the way through.
No, we had a couple more.
Don't say that word.
This song is called Bloodline, and it kind of like takes the bloodlines that we use in like cattle and horses and reimagines that as like what we came from, I guess, like generationally. Like, I don't know, a lot of us here have been here for 4 and 5 generations and wouldn't be without any one of those prior ones, so this is kind of an ode to that, I guess. Got a stallion I ride on the range. 100 years and more, still not much has changed. My grandfather and his father before, we still tie our spurs on before we walk through that door. Fighting mud and drought and disease, high-headed steers, wolves dressed in fleece. A hard life, God, it's all mine. Why the hell do we do it? I guess it's in the bloodline. Sometimes Mother Nature's at war. I've had both bankers and wolves at my door. They ask me, what do you keep fighting for? And that's fine. Guess it's in the bloodline. That old stallion, he goes on for days, up mountains through glades, across wide open space. You tied a rope, you can fire over his face. We put men in the ground that needed that space. You can rustle, but boy, don't blame me when your last trip to hell is from a rope and a tree. A hard life, God, it's all mine. Why the hell do we do it? I guess it's in the bloodline. Sometimes Mother Nature's at war. I've had both bankers and wolves at my door. They ask me, what do you keep fighting for? And that's fine. I say, I guess it's in the bloodline. This past spring my wife gave us a son. He's a wild little son of a gun. as he grows, Lord, if he should find he'd like to leave this cowboy living behind, well, that's fine. This past spring my wife gave us a son. He's a wild little son of a gun. As he grows, Lord, if he should find he'd like to leave this cowboy living behind, well, that's fine. Oh, but I think it's in the bloodline. In this line of work, you have a lot of windshield time, whether that be in a pickup, hauling across the county, or whether that be in a tractor putting up the hay, or horseback, or whatever it is. You get a lot of alone time, but a lot of those alone times are in some pretty cool settings, and some of those inspire you to, it kind of hits you to write a little bit. And, I enjoy doing that. I guess there's no happily ever after, but I'm not sure I want there to be a happily ever after. I want it to be worth it. Happily ever after is usually the end of the movie. I want the challenges to keep coming, and I want to find ways to be better and do better for this generation and the next one, and also in a nod to the 4 that I'm coming after.